Hi, hello to everyone. Thank you once again to join another interesting webinar from Securiton. A warm welcome to the audience for today. And without further ado, we will proceed with our agenda for today with a webinar, an interesting webinar from Securiton. We will be introducing setting up an ASD in 15 minutes, and we'll show you how powerful the ASD 531 that can be set up in a short period of time. Commission and installation guidelines will be given in this interesting webinar. And for those who just came in, kindly please switch off your microphone and camera. So I'll be starting up in a short while. Perfect. And before we start, let me introduce myself. And my name is Satya Seelan, and you can address me as Seelan. And I've been within the Securiton team, Sales International, for the last 14 years, basically taking care of all the technical support for Malaysia, based in Malaysia and Asia Pac, as well as Middle East and uh, Australia, and India, and also part of Africa as well. Yes, to mention also, I just turned 15 years within the company since this month, and it's a long journey. And basically, all the technical support and inquiries about the projects will be guided through me as well here in Malaysia. And touching up on the agenda for today, the topic that I'll be covering would be comprised of 5 main topics. I will start with the ASD portfolio itself, which is the ASD 531. I'll explain in detail about the 531, the features and stuff on the second part of it, of how you unbox and what are the features you're getting it from the 531. And the third topic I'll be covering on the set up a video, a short video, and what I've explained, how do you set up and how do you commission the system, and I'll show you in a very short video for you to understand better in a visual version. And I also will be covering on the option and expansion that are available in 531, and I'll summarize the entire agenda for today on the summary session. So that's our agenda for today. And with that, I'll go into the portfolio of the ASD itself. And we are talking about ASD 531. As you all know from Securiton, we have a wide range of ASDs available, but we'll be looking into the smallest unit that we have, which is ASD 531. Yes, it's the smallest, yet it's a robust and it's a powerful version of ASD that we have. And let's look into the features that it carries in order to be called as the robust ASD. In terms of the sensitivity that it can apply into would be 0.006 OBS per meter, obscuration per meter, in the other word. And it also capable of taking all the actions into places according to the class A, or action into EN54-20, whereby it passes class A, B, and C with a number of holes from 6, 8, and 12 respectively from A, B, and C. And in terms of branches, when you started to have branch, we can have branches as well according to the pipe calculation allowance. That also falls into class A, B, and C. And in terms of the aggregate tube length that it can be covered is 75 meters. And a single tube length, in case we have branches within the main branch, we can go up to 40 meters in terms of the length as well. So with that capabilities, we can summarize that the approximation of maximum area of coverage is approximately 720 meter square. So that puts into it's not only too small, but an average room can be covered with our ASD 531. In terms of the operating temperature, we're looking into here, it's about -10 and up to plus 55 degree, which means average cold storage warehouses or data center, which is under a lower temperature, could actually be utilized with our ASD 531 as well. In terms of the IP rating, that it comes with IP54. And of course, it does not have a smoke level display, but then indications on the pre-alarms can be shown in the alarm signals as well, which I'll be also explaining in a short while. So with that features, we will look into how this is marketed and how this ASD delivered to the customer. So what do you get out of the ASD 531 as in out of the box operation? Of course, like any other ASDs that Securiton is being sold, you need to do a lot of ordering process. For example, you need to get an ASD, you need to order the filter units, and you need to get the detectors range and stuff. So being the smallest unit, we make it simple for you, whereby everything is installed inside here, whereby the detector or the smoke sensor is pre-installed inside the ASD. And the instruction itself has been sticked in the cover, the back cover of the ASD 531 itself. So being simple and easy, out of the box, you get the ASD with the detector, with the sticker, and also a code, which you can have a code that which you can print out from the any mobile appliances, and you can get the codes for programming methods. In case you lost the stickers or whatsoever information, that can be done through that. And to be informed, there's only 3 main components that is needed for programming, which means you have the selections of whole, class, and the mode section. With that 3 buttons, it's easier to program the ASD, and you can commission it within less than 15 minutes for a typical data center or a small application rooms that we're going to look into it later. Okay, with that information, once you unbox the information, and the first and the foremost, as I mentioned before, there's no need of setting up this ASD, such as installing the detectors and whatsoever. As I mentioned, detector comes with the smoke sensor itself pre-installed, and once the cover is removed, this cover also comes without any ribbon cable or connections in between the main board and to the cover. So it's make it simple to remove the main cover and put it aside during the programming, installations, and maintenance purposes. So we will not damage the front cover, because unlike the rest of the ASD that we do have, it has a ribbon connections between the main cover board to the main board itself. Okay, so that makes it much easier in terms of maintenance or operational period of time. So let's look into the constructions of the ASD. As you can see, we will look from the top of it, and from the top you have 2 cable entries called unions M2 connections entry. In this entry, the first entry you can actually use it for a power supply and or the power supply to the other ASD units, and the second entry most probably you can using for other components such as the relay connections, fault connections, and the rest of the connection can be used at the second entry. So you can distinguish between the power segment and the detection segment of wirings itself. So that makes it easier for you to do from the top over entry into the ASD. And then we have the air outlets besides the entry, the main board entry. And this air outlets you can actually bring in case if you're working with the different climates. So the ASD has to have a air return. So that will be used for this air return unit place. And followed by a device terminal, which you can see on top. There are the terminals from power supply, from fault, alarm, and the rest of the components are on the device terminal. And itself, AMB31 is the main board itself. And here you have the indication and operation elements as well on top of it. And here there is no 7-segment display to show what is going on. As I mentioned earlier, this is a simple unit whereby it works only with reed switch and toggle switch settings available on the board. And besides that, we have the fan unit, which is pre-installed and connected, so no additional work need to be added in during the installation. And we have the airflow sensors pre-installed as well, and 2 expansion and additional modules are capable to be installed in this ASD. What are the 2 expansion modules will be explained in the next few slides. And we have the smoke sensors, as mentioned earlier, is also pre-installed. And here the blue color indicators are the 4 mounting housing cover. which is for you to be installed on a solid surface on a wall. And below is the last one beneath is the connections for the sampling pipe. So this is pretty easy. As you can see, there's no much involvement of extra features. It's very basic unit with very basic information shown and very basic connections available for to make installation fast, easy, and accurate. So with that note, let's go into the planning itself. And before you start any an installation, you have to make sure that you have to follow certain standards. So here, as you know, from Securiton, all our products are certified under EN or VDS approved. Under the EN 54-20, we have norms according to EN class A, EN 20A, B, and C, which is the high sensitive, and standards. So with that, we need to follow what is the length, the furthest length that you can go, and the number of holes that can be used according to these classes. As you can see here, the length pretty much remains the same for all the classes from class A to class C in terms of the aggregate length and further sampling point. That also remains the same from 40 meters from class A to class C. But in terms of the number of holes can be used, differs as 6 for class A and 8 for class B, and followed by 12 for class C. This is the number of holes that we can be used to apply according to the classes. That is also according to the application. This is basically an output from the from EN 54-20. But to be mentioned, this also fulfills the NAPA standard, which is NAPA 75, 76, as well as 72. So these are the two main, because as you can see, this has not contains any programming via the software. So the only possible settings that you can able to do with the standards or without the standards, which means according to the N54 or slash NFPA 72 or without the standards in different countries. So planning goes according to the country regulations. What we're talking about are the international standards. But at the same time, we also have to look into the local standards, which is the local code and practices. Like every other countries, they have their own practices in terms of number of holes can be used and the distance that an ASD can be traveled according to the. So this is a guideline which you should follow according to the EN54. Again, you have to compromise with the local standards as well, according to the countries that you're going to work with. So with that knowledge and planning that you have, then we will go into the settings of the ASD. So first, we need to know, are you going to use an EN54-20 or you're not? You're going to use an NAPA standards. Or are you going to use the system limits of the ASD itself, which means without any norms? So that's the first questions or the planning that you have to look into. So once you've planned for this, yes or no defines where you go to the next part. So the first one, if it's yes, I need to follow EN54, then you have to make sure this project is calculated according to the EN54-3 in our pipe flow in our pipe flow software. In there, it will actually gives you an information of, okay, it passes class A, B, and C. What is the sensitivity according to these classes will be shown, and you can print out in this PDF format. And once this is done, and you will go into the setting up the results into the AMB board according to the section 4.3.1. So what is the section which I'll be showing you? How do you do the commissioning according to the section? And all this informations can be taken from our technical documents. And normally our sales representatives should be able to give you all the documents which have the data sheets as well as the technical documents. So TD represent technical documents. And of course, this can change. Now at the moment is _C, and it could change according to the firmware operation. So you should have this document, and you can refer to the document before you start the commissioning. But as I said, this is the simplest unit. It's just an additional information for you to keep in your hand when you're working with ASD, because as I said, this is a 15 minutes way of programming that comes with ASD Factory 1. So now moving on, once you have done with the settings according to 4.3.1, the next you go for the airflow monitoring section, where you set up what are the tolerance of the airflow that you're going to work with. So are you going to go with the norms with this EN54, then you can set between 20% of the airflow value that can be lost. That is according to the EN54-20. And without the normative, then you can set the airflow. So what you have to do is you have to do the pipe flow. You have to set the 3 button settings which is available, which I'll be showing in the next one, and followed by you do the pipe flow monitoring deep settings. That's all. You're done. The ASD could be able to work with it. There are other additional settings also available, which I'll be also showing him. Now let's go into the main chapter of today, which is setting up the ASD within a short period of time, which is, we call it within 15 minutes. So as the planning is done, as the installation is done, pipes are running correctly and is checked and is cleaned. And the next moment is you have to do the commissioning. So commissioning will only take 3 steps. What we call the 3 steps are the 3 main programming tools which is available on it, which the first one is the hole size that you need to set, followed by the class that you're going to use. If you're going to work with the EN54, you shall use the class A, B, or C. And if you're not going to use the EN54, the rest of the columns, which is E, F, and all that is mentioned in the papers. What is the other without the norms that you set, and followed by the last one, which is the mode switch. The mode switch is to do an initial reset, followed by setting up the ASD to run on an ideal mode. That's all about it. So this is the 3 main ingredients for the ASD to be commissioned within 15 minutes. With this, the ASD shall be able to run without any problems. The rest of the things are the additional items that we can do. For example, the relay settings available on it, the airflow settings, which is available on it as well, SD cards, and the rest of the items, which is optional, I would say. So with the main 3 ingredients that we have shown here, you could able to commission the system less than 15 minutes. Okay. So with that note, I'll go into more additional details that you can able to do with the ASD. As you can see, the commissioning sheets were actually sticked at the back of the cover of ASD itself, so you will not go anywhere missing. And there's also you can download this information from your mobile with a click away from the icon below as well. And here, as you can see from your left, I can say there's a commissioning steps. So there are 2 ways of commissioning, with the pipe flow calculation or without the pipe flow calculation, which means you don't have a pipe flow calculation. As you know, it's a short pipe with number of holes that you need. Then you do the sensitivity settings and you set the mode you're going to use, and good to go. Okay. So second, there's an explains on the control elements, which is the hole, the class, the mode, and the set and reset buttons information, followed by the airflow bar graph. The airflow bar graph is an LED indicators which will be shown on the ASD itself to say where exactly went wrong, which means your airflow is above the tolerance or below the tolerance. So anything positive, which actually indicates there is a block, there is a leakage, and anything negative, it shows there is a leakage in the system. Those indicators are shown in a blinking format. And those are the sensitivity that, according to the pipe flow calculation, as you mentioned, the first step is you need to distinguish whether you are going with pipe flow or without. So with, then you can follow this sensitivity according to the classes mentioned here, and the position that the whole switch shall be placed are shown in the graph tables shown. And additionally, you can work with the relay deep switches, which is also available, which you can use either the alarm latching or the alarm fault latching or the pre-signal latching. You want it to be latch or non-latch, can be shown on the can be done on the deep switch itself. So these are the optional. It is not a must, but you can do all this as well. So that shows how simple and how easy that you can able to commission the system within a period of time. So let me talk about one final information. After you commission the system, you also have to make sure the airflow is within the tolerance. So as I mentioned earlier, the airflow tolerance will be shown in the ASD in an LED indication. And anytime you see anything above the 100%, the middle is actually the 100% of smoke, which has been taken into ASD. And the moment you have a signal showing or an LED signal popping out on above the 100%, it shows there is actually a leakage in the system. So that's how I indicate. And anything you see below the 100%, it's also represent there is a breakage in the system. Sorry, there is a constraint in the pipes as well. It means the holes were blocked or some constraint inside the pipe itself. And in the deep switch, that when you are setting up, we have to make sure that the system has to be set 20%, which will fulfill EN54-20. But there is also tolerance for 30%, 50%, or a lesser value of 10% also. But please take note, anything beyond this 20% does violate the EN54-20. So your local standards and code says, no, I can go more tolerance, which means if there's 3 or 4 number of holes are blocked, I still can work with the ASD and there should not be a problems. Then you can set it at 30% or a 50%. But bear in mind, it does violate EN54, but there's functions available as well. And you can also use the deep switch to make sure that how much of delays that you require for it. For example, the minimum you can have 10 seconds, and that's for the test position. Otherwise, you can go from 300 seconds up to 20 minutes before the fault being released into ASD. So there are time, for example, the blockage for a short period of time during some work process or whatsoever not. So you always have issues in this installation. So you want to delay, you can do three types of delay that are available on board settings. Okay, for that note, let me go into the other details, which will be talking about the external or the expansion of the ASD modules that are available to cater with or to work with the ASD 531. As you know, it's a simple standalone system and it can't be networked and easy to commission. It does not require any PC or engineering tool to commission. So it comes with no intranet or no commissioning with computers needed. So it doesn't have a serial, so it can't be networked with any. But to be mentioned that it can be looped with our Sakura line, which there is an expansion module called XLM35. With that, you can actually connect this to an existing loop of a Sakura system. And followed by, we can also have a relay output module. Additionally, on board, there's two relays available, an alarm fault. And if you need more relays to cater, for example, pre-alarm 1, pre-alarm 2, which I'll be explaining in the next slide, can be done through the relay optional module called RIM36. And also, there is an onboard card reader available on the ANB31, which is the main board itself, which you can insert the SD card. The purpose of the SD card is to make sure the event files and the smoke concentration file are being logged. This is for your further information to be derived. Okay, with that note, let me explain what are the inputs and outputs available in the small and robust unit of ASD 531. Let me start from below. The XLM, as I mentioned earlier, is actually a module called Sakura line module, and it's used to connect the Sakura to connect the ASD to Sakura to mix it into the loop, and it can be addressed. The ASD can be addressed, and you can reset. It also can be said as a high-level interface module, whereby you can give you alarm, pre-alarms, and you can also reset the systems, and the rest of the information can be derived from the Sakura system. Followed from the below is the RIM36, as I shared. This is a relay module, additional relay apart from the alarm and fault of the main board. We can actually utilize alarm 2, pre-alarm 3, 2, 1, and also a pipe blockage information from this relay. This is a predefined relay configuration by firmware, so you can't able to reprogram, but exactly this is what we need for a small installation. So when you install this RIM card, it automatically takes all these assignments by itself without any additional requirements of programming needed. And it also has an external reset button, which you can be made through from the main board itself. There's a connections for external, and with this external reset button, if you use this press button for more than 18 seconds, the ASD can be switched off or goes into maintenance mode. That's also possible using an external reset button by consumer. And as I mentioned earlier, on board itself, we have alarm and fault, which can be sent. It's a relay connections, which can be sent to any sounder, beacons, or any other fire alarms as well. Any other third-party fire systems installed in a building can be given through the relays, the onboard relays, as well from the Preem 36. Good. With that note, I also have to mention the other additional features that we have with this ASD is the deep switches. As I mentioned, the three main buttons for commissioning and other additional would be the filter monitoring option. Even though the filters are not practically monitored, but we can set them as a monitoring. That means we give them a timeline that it works for a certain period of time according to the condition where it's working, for example, from a data center, a clean room, or a warehouse, or a dusty environment. So with that information, we can able to let the filter knows that you should be able to give you an information back to us within 2 months to 20 months that you should give a filter change information, a fault into the ASD. So this can be set by the filter monitoring to on or off. You want this option, you switch it on. If you don't want the options, you can switch it off. And the change limits, as I mentioned, is from 2 months up to 20 months. And you can read out this filter service live as well from the SD card, which has been installed. And this can be activated with the basic config. What do you mean by basic config here is actually the deep switches settings that is available on board. As you mentioned, there is no additional cables are required, so you can do with the basic config itself. And you activate this filter replacement by pressing the reset and key longer than 15 seconds. And this will be activated automatically. And once this is done, the filter can be replaced and you reset the system and good to go. Okay, so you don't need to be panicked. So you can do with all the switches and deep switches which is available on board itself. Now, additionally, we also have SD card, as I mentioned. The SD card is separately procured, and when you insert this SD card inside, to be mentioned earlier, sorry, we have 1,000 events which is stored into this ASD. Additionally, you need more information that can be taken would be 640,000 events are stored into this SD card, where you can get all this information such as pre-alarms, alarms, fault, the intervention, the timestamp, which is who logged in and who switched it on, switched it off, all this information. Together with the smoke level concentration, the airflow values, which are stored in every 1 second. So you can retrieve this information in an Excel format, which is stored into this SD card, and you can read and evaluate the ASD in terms of if you want things to study on the events as well. Good. With that, I'll show you a short video, and what I've explained earlier, how do you commission, will be shown in this short video. Just give me a few seconds to switch it on the video. Okay, as you can see, first you set the holes and you set the class. And once you're done with that, and you can see the airflows, and then you press the mode to 1 to 0, and you press the reset button. And once you're done, you set it to 1 and you press again. That's it, you're done. As you can see, the OK sign, as well as the 2 green color indicator to show that it's working. So you're done with the permissioning. Now what you're doing is additional things, which is the airflow settings, which is available that you need to do to make sure that you're within the 20%, 30%, 50%, or 10% of airflow. Then you set back into a running mode according to the system, and you reset the system, and the airflow works. And now the last point is how to remove the SD card, and you come back to normal mode again, and you set it up again. That's it. So that shows how fast you can do a commissioning of ASD. Of course, this video shows how we recommission a commission system, which is that's why it's fast. But realistically, you have to make sure that you let it run the ASD and stabilize, and then you do all the 3 settings as well as the airflow settings and removal of the SD card procedures. All procedures are available fast, easy over the ASD 531. Good. With that note, okay, hold on, guys. Okay. With that note, I'm going to where do we use the ASD 531? It looks easy, simple, fast, and accurate, and within less than 15 minutes, you should be able to do this. And typical places that you can use would be the IT racks, smaller units areas, whereby you don't need number of ASDs, and electrical distribution cabinets, small communication containers, false ceilings, elevator shaft, clean rooms as well, because sometimes they need compartmentations whereby each and every clean rooms where the fabrications are taking place need zoning system. So that's where ASD 531 plays the major role. So they can zone each and every one of this fabrication area. And ventilation duct, for example, because air return units and ventilation duct, you can use ASD 531 as well. And not to mention equipment monitoring as well. Here, a typical example to show you on how and where can be the ASD 531 used. See, for example, equipment rooms, mostly because number of cabinets used for small rooms are pretty much less. So one ASD can actually covers, according to the German standards, 5 cabinets, but of course, according to class A, B, or C. But if you see again, if it's according to the classes, then you have to make sure that according to class A, 3 numbers, 3 number of holes can be used, and according to class B, you can use 4, and according to class C, you can use 6 number of holes. This depends, again, as I said, for a clean room, obviously you have to use class A, and whereas for a transformer protections room and any other beyond clean room and as well a data center, you can use class B or a class C. So the number of holes can be increased, and typically how this is ASD will be installed on the cabinet and the number of holes utilization. Okay, with this information, I'm sure most of you get the idea where ASD can be used and how easy ASD 531 in terms of the usage in the market. So to be mentioned that all the certifications are there for the ASD 531, which is the VDS approved from Germany or Switzerland or Europe. And we are also UL listed and FM approved, and we have CCC and the rest of important worldwide recognition, for example, ROHS, which is safe to be used and to be disposal as well. So we have the company name productions, and also we are global acceptance around the world. So the product can be used in any market or most of the market around the world as well. So with that information, I would end my presentation today, and hope everyone get an in-depth understanding of how simple the ASD 531 can be used and can be utilized in your projects. And I pass to Mr. Zach. Thank you.
Seelan, we have got a few questions, and the first question is on what format is the information saved on the SD card and how to view it.
Perfect. So inside the SD card, as I mentioned, 640,000 events are stored in Excel format. So when you can retrieve this information, put it into your card reader in PC, and you can able to get the Excel file, and you can also see small concentration values as well.
The next question is, since networking is only possible with SecuriLine, how can we send information if another fire alarm panel is already installed? Okay,
so the question is any third-party fire alarm panels being already in the production? The only possible way you can give is through the onboard relays available, which is alarm and fault. There's 2 information, but in case the customer needs the pre-alarms and alarm 2 and as well as additional fault, they can procure the RIM 36. With that information, you can give more than few signals to any inputs of fire alarm panels existed in the site.
And the next question and the last question is, if the SD card is installed and unattended for a long
Yeah.
period of time, can this cause overstorage of data and release a fault?
Okay. So this is always a question about SD card being installed and unattended for a long period of time. And what happens, will it accumulate information or will it get it full? No. The thing is, we have this FIFO first in, first out. And once it reached the 640,000 events, it overwrites the information. So it does not accumulate more files. So you will never have issues that the SD card getting full or a fault comes out or because of the SD, unless the SD card is full. Otherwise, we should not have any problems with the SD card.
Okay, so the next question is it possible to set the RIM36 relay positions like sensor fault, pre-alarm, etc.?
It is pre-defined, which means it's by firmware driven. So when the moments you put it in, you get all this pre-information, which is pre-alarm 1, 2, and 3, and fault, which is blockage and breakage fault will be shown in the relay. So it's pre-defined by the firmware.